Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm really happy to have a guest this morning, Inga Kastrone, and she's from the island of Malta, or an island in the Malta area. And I met her online a few weeks ago, and she also has a small podcast, and she interviewed me. And now I get to learn more about her. And so do you get the benefit of learning more about Inga also. So I'll read her a little biography about her. Inga Kastrone of Healing Radiance, the name of her company is Healing Radiance, is a quantum alchemist, an energy healer, and Akashic record reader living on the sacred island of Gozo in the Mediterranean. Inga supports sensitive souls and spiritual visionaries in transmuting soul level and ancestral blocks, reconnecting to their vision for this lifetime, and designing an embodied structure that can hold the new energies of our time. Her work blends energy healing, somatic practice, deep subconscious work, and it's rooted in a lived relationship with the natural world. I think that sounds beautiful. Her website is healingradiance.com. The link is below, or healing-radiance.com. She offers an Akashic Records course, and she's also writes on Substack and has a Facebook link here for you to follow her if you'd like to do so or learn more about her. So, Inga, I've been so curious. How did you get into your work, or what was the life events for you that led up to your doing what you're doing now? And just share what you feel comfortable with, whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. And for me, as I contemplate on this, well, first of all, Carla, yeah, thank you for having me here.
You're welcome.
Got
You're welcome.
carried away with all the wonderful things about myself. For me, this transition from a more, conventional things to do and onto this wild spiritual alchemy and womb healing and all these quantum modalities. It was a process, definitely. I mean, I was always called to spiritual exploration. I was very curious. I was a spiritual explorer since early childhood, and that was kind of a bit in dissonance with my family of origin, who weren't particularly interested, but there were their own reasons not to. But I think the old structures for me started collapsing around 2010 when I spent 3 months in Jerusalem volunteering. And kind of being in holy places often does that if I really tune in. But I heard that from other people that, the comfortable structures start collapsing and a new paradigm emerges, but it's very scary. But it was a slow, over a few years, a process of dissolution of what I thought I'd be doing for the rest of my life. And as that started happening, of course, I became more curious. I wanted to know about past lives. I wanted to know about why my relationships were the way they were. I suddenly started realizing that certain things I ignored were abuse, that things happened in childhood that I didn't want to remember, and etc., etc. And as I started working through these processes and things, people were saying I could. Well, people's impression was that I was a healer. To me, it was like, okay, all right, I guess so, whatever you say. The first thing I studied was Reiki, and kind of it went uphill from there. And when I took Akashic Records class and I kind of did some practice readings for my friends, they said, oh, well, that's the missing piece. That's, it points out the essence of my soul. And I started in a very kind of very high up, the up there way of working, where we work with Akashic Records, with very high frequency energies. And I did that for a few years. It feels good. And I was like, wow, I'm so advanced, all this spiritual exploration is like, I am so advanced. There we go. And it was after I moved to Malta, to the Maltese Islands, and after spending a few years here, that I started to land. It's like I started to come home. And I was like, okay, this is wonderful. The high frequency stuff is amazing. And I obviously do have a gift for that, because it works, right? It does. But grounding was still a problem. And I thought, well, how can it be that, I have those wonderful spiritual revelations, how the universe works, and I'm still not fully present in my body, and I do those stupid things that you'd say, well, someone much less, quote unquote, evolved would be doing. And okay, something's not adding up, right? And that's when this process of embodiment and working, kind of landing back into the body started, where I realized maybe some of the spiritual exploration, absolutely, it had a place, but it was also a way of avoiding myself and avoiding the lived sensations and lived experiences. And I would say in the past few years, basically what's happening to me is I'm coming to realize that the simpler, the better. The simplest things make the most sense to me in terms of, okay, we are advanced souls and we've come here for a reason and we've come here for a mission, but we've also come here into the earth because we once fell in love with it. That's why we're here. And our bodies are woven of the earth, of the elements of the earth. And it's actually a magical relationship that trees and crystals and our bodies and the planets and the stars have an interconnection. And it's good to feel it, to live it, not just to, ascend. When are we all going to ascend? So I don't do that. And so that's where I am currently, at this synthesis, in that I've become much more passionate about grounding and being present while maintaining the bigger picture and the bigger reality. But it needs to land. If it doesn't land, nothing's going to work. Okay, I'm going on a long rant here.
No, it's good. It's good. But I totally agree. Well, in several things, like I found that in my journey, I think when we start into more of the deeper spiritual realm, I think it must be something natural that pulls us higher, right? So maybe we need that first to have that connection, to know, to know God, to know spirit more. And because I have found myself in the last, especially the last year, becoming much more grounded and led that way, and trying to always have an eye in my body, one eye on the inside, to see how I'm feeling, to see if I'm in that low grade fight or flight response, which I was in so much of my life and still can get into very quickly. And so it's a matter of watching for that, and grounding, then to come out of it or to anchor again. And then from there, it allows a much bigger expanse too of the higher frequencies, I think, or a um, perhaps not as exciting as it first was when we were learning, but definitely deeper.
Hmm.
Or,
Yeah, I agree. I think we need that. We need the lived experience. I can't say I can't point to the exact, you know, well, I do have the first moment of a lived experience of the divine was when I was 10. I remember it very well. It was in a churchyard on the Feast of the Holy Trinity in Lithuania. And it was funny because I grew up very atheistic. My parents were atheists and chemistry. Both were chemistry teachers and had doctorate in chemistry.
mm,
And and the whole system around us was not particularly religious experience prone. So it was very interesting. But that was my first experience of the divine. And I felt kind of odd and out of place because it was uncommon. While at the same time, of course, there were other people. But I think that the kind of the path is interesting because it seems that, yeah, I want to go up. There are those incredible spiritual experiences. But as I grow deeper into them, they also need to land. So, in a certain sense, it becomes um, maybe less ecstatic and more mundane.
yeah,
It's like I can see the divine in washing the dishes, and it didn't happen to me before. And I think it's interesting.
yeah, yeah, very, very much so. Um, there's there's so many things I want to ask and want to learn about what you do. But what I want to hear most, I guess, is more about that love for the earth. Every equinox, so September and Marches, I do a program. Well, I center the whole month, try to around what I call Friend a Tree Week, the 3 days before the equinox and the 3 days after the equinox, where I encourage people to send their intentions through the trees throughout the universe and to listen to the wisdom of the trees and have so you can actually feel physically, learn to feel the tree energy and use it for
Yes.
your physical healing. And so do you have any tree experiences or things that you could share now? I know it's we're not quite in March, but it's pretty close. And um yeah, could you share some of that?
I'd love. I first of all, I love what you're sharing, and yes, I do. And oh my goodness, that's exactly this part. That's I am in the process of living through. Definitely, of course, I grew up around trees, and funnily enough, I'm now in Malta where there aren't so many trees, and this is where I learned to connect to trees. Isn't life interesting? But I started working with the intelligence of trees and plant kingdom actually maybe 3 years ago. And I remembered my father was talking to trees. He always said, "Oh, I have to tell them to grow faster. Or, this tree is not doing so well. I think it needs water." And oh, will you please? He was trying to convince the tree to do things. And I thought, well, it was completely normal to me, but it wasn't strange to talk to trees, but I never did that myself. So here in Malta, I remember my first experience of really tuning into the intelligence of the tree, like the being of the tree, first connecting to the roots. And it slowed me down. I said, wow, my whole like breath and nervous system is rooting together with the tree. I do this meditation often with my clients, and everyone has an amazing experience. And it's often when I sense that there is a sense of disconnect. Like, we're missing connection. So if I feel somebody is missing, feeling very alone, or missing connection, or isn't very, like, I'm separate from everything, it's my favorite thing to do is to go talk to the tree roots. But I remember this, my own experience, where I was kind of grounding together with the tree into the root world. And I saw all the plant roots connected to each other. Like, they do form a worldwide web spanning the well, I am on an island, but I did say it like spanning the whole globe, even when you don't see the physical roots. But those plant networks, they communicate, they talk to each other. Tree talks to another tree, then there are other plants underneath, there is the mycelial networks. And I kind of just let my nervous system root into that. And at first, I wouldn't be able to explain it. Like, okay, what just happened? Because it is this quantum state which doesn't really lend itself to verbal, to a very linear explanation. But things started happening after this, when I learned also of my own ancestors who believed that the ancestral realm is the roots of the tree, right? It's the root realm underneath the earth, but it wasn't hell back in those days. It was just the realm of the ancestors, and they lived in the roots. That's why, for example, my grandmother, she asked to be buried under a pine tree, because it's deep. I don't think it's a very articulate belief. It's like, I am going to become part of the pine tree. Nobody has ever said that, and I don't think anyone believes that in such a linear way. But there was this connection, right? My ancestors come into the roots of the tree, and it became clear to me at that instant. And then I connected further, right? Exchanging the breath also with the tree, and just running that circle. And it calmed me down. I felt the slowing down, like the brain's going into a theta state. And I thought, wow, now I understand why, Buddha had enlightenment under a tree, and someone else, everyone is connected. Even Christ had his initiation in connection to a tree, which is like brought forth right in the liturgy. And I said, oh, that makes sense, because it's a living intelligence. It's a slow process, but it's like we're still structured a little bit like trees energetically. So I love communing to trees, and I don't think it's um, really explainable in a very good way. To me, it's very much a quantum process, right? That's just happening. I let my nervous system connect to the tree nervous system, and it's soothing and liberating, very, very healing, also very connecting for me. As I said, for me, it was an opening to my ancestors.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. I try to hold a tree every day and feel into the energy. And like a lot of times, if I'm not feeling good, I'll ask it to heal me. Or, if I think I don't have the physical strength, or, feeling good enough to say do a client session, but I didn't,
Mhm.
I don't feel bad enough to cancel, but not really good. And so I go to the tree, and yeah, it always gives me the strength I need
Yeah,
to, um, to be there fully. And
yeah,
so beautiful. I just, uh, that connection is so important. Yeah.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
how you said to remember our love for the earth. Yeah. Like how you said that. So, what would you like to talk about first? More of the ancestral energies, or would you the more of the alchemy part.
Let's do the alchemy.
Okay.
Let's dive into the alchemy.
Yes. So, I guess what is it kind of goes along with you use the words quantum healing and spiritual alchemy. They kind of go together, I think. So um, I kind of feel in my experiences that people don't always mean the same things, perhaps
Mhm.
when they say that, or sometimes it's that they're just using words but don't really have the inner concept of of what they're
Mhm.
doing with those, and I feel you strongly do have the inner um behind it. So could you kind of just say what you mean by it? Or
Yeah, it's an excellent point and a very good question. Yes, I have the same impression. So but we have to call things something. It's always the
yeah,
problem with language, right? We
yeah.
it limits, but we have to call it something. So thing is, in the past few years, for me, it's become very clear that I'm not interested in, just quote unquote, like healing, like love and light. Let's all be happy, happy, happy. Because I don't believe in that anymore. As you can probably see, I'm a very joyful person. I'm not, I'm not advocating sadness and constantly wrapping ourselves in blankets of grief and off we go. That's not the point, but I did notice that many people have come to me, with questions, with desires, with things they wanted to achieve without being rooted in their roots, in their basement, in that deep dark realm where ancestors, but also sad things live, right? The grief and
Yeah,
the
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 trauma. Hmm.
trauma, the abuse, the all of it, right? But yeah, the trauma is, I
Yeah.
would say, how nowadays we would call that root realm. And I thought, well, there's something is not adding up, because just healing, just asking for things to clear, and I still do that a lot, because yes, energies, sometimes we just need to clear energies without overthinking it or
Hmm.
overdoing it. But we can't just wish everything painful to go away, because sometimes the pressure is exactly what makes the soup cook, right? What makes us go for, like, okay, we can eat only raw foods, but we were born also through pain and pressure, and probably merging wasn't an incredibly pleasant experience. And then when we die, it's also not an entirely love and light experience. Some things will be unpleasant, and some things will probably feel wonderful. um, so I thought, well, no, I can't, in good conscience, just wish for everything, just let's clear all negativity. Something else wants to emerge. And then, of course, there were many others before me who knew that already. So I connected to, let's say, different traditions and different studies. But I found it much more rooted and grounded and empowering to, rather than aim for clearing, aim for alchemizing. This being said, of course, sometimes I would have a client who, they are a mess, right? They need energy clearing. There is no, we're not going to talk about alchemizing and connecting to your shadow. That's not that's not on the table. So of course there needs to be wisdom and balance, like that. we need to be strong to connect to the shadow and to go into the root realm sometimes. But I found that, oh, grief is where my love is hiding, and uh, poverty was a gateway into abundance. And the ancestral, even those ancestral doors and ancestral wounding, they had so many treasures, so much power, because I don't feel alone or separate in
Right.
the way that I used to.
Yes.
But in order to feel connected to ancestors, I first had to face my own issues with them. Like, why was I born the way I was born, and why was I in this family? So this alchemical process, maybe it's a sign of growing up, or it's just a different stage. Well, okay, well, now I want to see that there is also, that it's not just day, there's also night, and darkness is crucial for our bodies. If we don't get enough darkness, we have just as much of a problem as when we don't get, even worse, as when we don't get enough light, and etc., etc. So we need those, and that's where, of course, the womb centered traditions, and seeing the divine as a womb of life, in a sense. That's where it also came in for me, because then it's less, mm, then it's more non-dual. Let's put it this way, that it's more whole. Practically speaking, now I'm not here to talk philosophy, practically speaking, it helps me with empowering people. And when a client comes in with a particular issue, like usually people ask about relationships or abundance issues, and that's where people come for Akashic record readings, like, well, why are all my relationships breaking apart? And there is, of course, deep shadow work to do. But it's amazing when the pain and trauma can be alchemized into power, where we don't have to pretend, where I don't have to pretend that I am all love and light. Certainly have a lot more work to do on that.
Don't we all?
Yeah, don't we all, right? It's it's a vulnerable place to say, oh, this and this happened, like that there was abuse in my childhood that I wasn't even aware of until I was 30 years old. And it's a vulnerable place. Like, no, I don't want to talk about that. I want to be all love and light. But problem is, of course, if I want to forget it, if I'm shutting it out, I cannot connect. Like, I remember, and now as I speak of it, I remember very well that I felt frozen, and people thought I was cold and emotionless because parts of me were locked up, and they couldn't come online. So there was no power. Everything was flat and in a comfortable little box, because it was scary to venture outside. So now, looking back, I realized, oh, but when I saw that I experienced abuse from a family friend, uh, actually, once I realized that, I opened up. I became a warmer person. I started seeing new opportunities. Right. So it's a magical world we live in. It's not black and white, right? There is abuse, there is trauma that needs to be healed. There are traumatic responses that, of course, need to be worked through and addressed. And there is a process to heal and to grieve, and to allow the grief to pour out in order to move forward. But then also witnessing a kind of opening up to the reality is also magically, it does something to the power. There is an expansion. That has been my experience, if it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I too didn't know until even a few years ago.
Mm.
that I had had an abusive situation, that um, when I was very young, when I was 3, and um, but it helped. I mean, because in realizing that, because there was had been things I'd always done in a certain way, and why am I doing it that way? There wasn't any basis in my family for why I was doing things
Mhm.
certain ways or why I felt certain ways. And when I found out about the abuse, then healing had to come, and the grief and the anger, like you said, and the pain. Um, um, but oh, I lost my train of thought.
The
Uh,
the abusive situation. I guess we started there, or was the
yeah,
alchemizing part?
yeah. Well, I don't, I don't know.
I
I just
realized
totally lost mine.
I
But
realized I also lost my train of thought somewhere, but it's poor.
well, we must be meant to
What
change
comes
the
through comes.
subject then.
I
The
guess we.
but
I guess
I
we are.
but as far as at needing that past to heal from, just a perfect, to me, it looks like a perfect opportunity. I My first marriage was an abusive. He was an alcoholic, and a drug addict. It was abusive, and so when that ended, when I was finally able to get out of it, it was like I just wanted to forget that that had happened. And I had a baby, and I wanted to make a good life for the baby, a whole family, right? And so I had got involved with another guy right away, right? And fell in love and got married. Only I didn't heal from the first. And I wasn't even wanting to heal. I wanted to completely shut it out and forget it that it had happened and move on. That was my mindset at the time, as a 20 something young mother, right? And just wanted the best for my child, and to forget the pain. And
Mhm.
but I chose wrong again. Right? It wasn't an alcoholic or drug addict, but it wasn't a good marriage. And um so it just shows, that we need that pain, we need to bring us into healing, so that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's just part of life.
It is. Yeah. So I've come to accept that, and it's and just, yeah, just live with life as it is, because that I live in a place that is actually very elemental, and maybe that's what brought forth this relationship, because nature is not love and light. It can be,
Yeah,
but it can, we have storms and hurricanes, and the sea kills people, and the sea is a beautiful thing, but it commands respect, and it's this very divine quality, right? This energy, the life force is intense, but it can also destroy everything in its path, and that's how life is. That's how life works, and I love it, because this magic is bigger than me,
yeah,
and yet I'm a part of it. When I kind of dissolve in it, right, I'm a part of this magic, and I can work with this magic. So it's this mystery. It's kind of, okay, the magic is bigger than me. I am nobody, and suddenly I can create amazing things because I I am nobody. So
yeah,
things
yeah.
things turn around.
So, how could you talk more about womb healing? And
Yeah, yeah. And so I did mention actually and I think I'm talking about the spiritual aspect of womb healing already, this kind of the higher level, because to me, ultimately, the physical womb is a representation of life force, of the creator in a certain
mhm,
way. Of course, creator is much more than that, but that is womb in the sense of a quantum realm, where we come down as a soul, right? We trickle down from the spirit world and we become woven into matter. It is a quantum reality.
Hmm.
So our wombs are ultimately magical
Hmm.
because they can
Yeah.
bring
Bring
forth
life.
life.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. A soul with God, and then suddenly it comes here into, into the world through the womb.
Well,
And
and
the,
yeah, what's amazing to me is that as women, right, we were already formed as eggs, right, in our mother's
yeah,
womb when
yeah,
she was in the womb.
yeah, yeah.
And it's like, whoa. Um, no wonder there's ancestral patterns that affect us so greatly, right?
Of course, yes. And we learn them in, well, kind of my belief system would be that we, in the womb, we are connected to, and I'll go trickle down to healing in a moment. But I'll start from higher up, as is my tradition of it.
Sure, go for it.
Starting from the Akashic Records and then going to the roots of the tree.
That's
um,
lovely. Yeah.
in the, I believe in our mother's womb, right? So we all seen those pictures of the fetus that goes through stages of evolution of life on Earth, right? From a single-celled organism and then becoming through aquatic creature like a little dolphin and then a little pig and rat and going all the way to human being, which is a mirror of evolution of whole life on the planet. So again, it's the quantum reality where all evolution develops within 9 months. It's like but we're also connected to, I believe, our ancestral patterns in the mother's womb. Again, this being a quantum space where spirit meets matter, but it's still very, very fluid. So we do have a deeper connection and maybe even conversations with our lineages and with ancestors. And of course, this can be for the good in a wonderful and healed world. This would have been an amazing thing because we're already being woven and we're weaving ancestral wisdom. But in a broken and disconnected world, it's also a curse because we connect not just to, say, I don't know, mother being yelled at and we hear it in her womb, but we also connect to the wound of her mother's mother and etc. that she is connected to. And then that's where people start, saying, why is this happening to me, right? I wasn't abused. I was born in a good family. Why is this happening to me? And then we start digging ancestral history, and we find patterns, and
Yeah.
hidden things, and etc. But those womb time realms, I think they hold deep beyond healing. Now, of course, when there is sexual abuse or womb pain, endometriosis, or patterns, that we hold in our physical wombs. That is a part of womb healing also. But then again, it is deeply embedded in ancestral patterns, like the pain of endometriosis, for example. I was having a conversation with someone not so long ago where she was saying, well, it has ancestral roots in women not being allowed to be who they are, right? Either rejecting their femininity or not being able to express it fully, not being able to, and let's say, to voice themselves, to express themselves, and also patterns of abuse and victimization. And some of that in her clients, it went through, it also was a repetitive pattern through many generations. And then the woman bears endometriosis as the already the physical manifestation of this pain of generations in the physical womb. But as with everything else in the body, of course, the roots of the issue often begin at more subtle levels than the physical. Um, but of course, I don't specialize so much in health issues, like specific physical health issues. Let's heal this particular problem. I'm more interested in psychology and mental processing, right? And spiritual evolution
Right.
and energy work. But of course, they come hand in hand. It's not possible to separate. But in terms of womb healing, what I mostly work with is healing from sexual abuse and clearing the imprints of past partners, let's say, and because womb being a magical quantum space also carries imprints from every partner, but energetically, unfortunately, from my perspective, also even with the intention of committing sexual abuse, or maybe looking at, oh, let me have some of that,
Mm.
it's kind of looking as less than. Often even those get imprinted into the energetic structure of the womb. And it kind of sounds maybe like counter freedom, uh, counter liberating, like, oh, but I want to run around and be happy. But I've come to learn, and have everyone want me and desire me. But I've learned that maybe I don't want too many cords plugged into me over time.
Mm.
uh, so that's also part of this womb healing, in that we want to connect to it's not just to clear abuse and to clear the trauma, but, and here I come back to the alchemy part, but I want to also connect to the power of the womb, this power to birth force creation, to birth also ideas, also books can come through the womb, or inspiration, or even what blog post to write. There is a difference from asking the heart versus asking the womb. It can be a different frequency. Yes, they work in synchrony. Heart is kind of radiating, womb is pulling in. Um, but there is a different frequency. And sometimes, I want to speak from the womb, from that deep, oracular, embodied voice that is more womb like. Even the word like ooh that resonates at the lower chakras, but it's also it's a very embodied reality. It's very different from the heart, which is radiant and is our connection to the soul. So sometimes I actually had a lot of blocks or challenges in terms of connecting to that voice of the womb, because I said, oh no, womb, it's like it's too crude. I'm a fine lady. Excuse me. We're not going to talk about the womb. We're going to talk about angels. But uh, I find that very often when we have blocks, for me personally, and most people I worked with, when there is a block in terms of connecting to womb power, when there's been sexual abuse, when there's been trauma, right, when there is disconnect from the feminine self, or disconnect from the body, not wanting to be in the body, not wanting to be on earth, not wanting to be here, all up there, always the angels and books and theory. But then there are also problems with finances.
Mm.
Paradox, but it's the same
Huh.
realm. Like, what, I can't birth, right? I can't bring forth the power. To me, womb is intimately like, it's like womb and abundance are like the same thing.
Yes, yes. Well, the water, right? I meant like money
Oh,
flows like water. You have the womb is full of water, right? Um, symb
yeah.
um, Symbiotic water or whatever you want to call it in the womb.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The water realms, yeah. And I'm thinking also, one day I had a vision of bank vault. They
Oh,
are deep in the most
yeah.
ancestral traditions had
Interesting.
a desire to come back. Remember when I was talking about womb realms and that we're connected to the spirit and the ancestors, like horizontally and vertically? Of course, our ancestral traditions, they all had this womb kind of rebirth or going back into the womb realms again. All those teepees and sweat lodges and caves and being in a confined space. It's almost like under going back to that quantum reality where we are connected to everything. It's to remember the environment of the womb. Um, but I was thinking also this vision of bank vault, which is also in a cave underneath, right, was a lot of doors, was like labyrinthine passages to get into, hidden in the center of the house, like in old Iraqi houses. They had a storage room for dates, which was in the inner sanctum of the house, the holiest place where you'd store dates so they don't get too hot and that rain doesn't come in there. So it's like the womb of the house. And the bank has the womb, the vault where the treasures are stored. The treasures were always in the ground, in the womb realms, in the ancestral, in the root
Interesting.
realm.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, well, and guess what? Most of the client base I started off with, like when as an Akashic Records reader 10 years ago, even more than 10 years ago, they all had problems with money. No one had
Mhm.
everyone was penniless and like chronically and even like extremely problematic situations with money, like living in the mother's basement, age 30, don't know what to do, useless education and so on. I know we all have problems with money every now and then, but
Mhm.
there was this extreme spiritual, so much energy up here all around the head and the heart, and it's like being a pear, right? Even like a
Mhm.
light bulb, so everything is here,
Okay.
and as soon as we get to the navel, and then everything below the navel is like,
Mm.
tiny little, nothing there because all of the power is up here. But the problem is,
Mhm.
like, nothing can be born. Like, you can think yourself rich. There was a book, right? Yeah, I mean, you can think yourself rich as much as you want, but if nothing trickles down into the feet, into the womb, and by the way, everyone has an energetic womb. Um, Even whether they're male or female, the imprint exists for everyone. So it's and we are originally formed female in the mother's womb anyway, so male is a deviation from the pattern, hence the desire to prove that it is not so. But that's a topic of another discussion. But
Beautiful.
it's amazing. It's really amazing that kind of this huge volume of energy in the upper chakras and nothing there. And of course, you'd ask, well, why I have no money? Well, this is why we need to bring it down. We need to start working with the womb. And problem is, it's not a one, like it's a restructuring. It's not a one-off. It's a
Right. Right.
restructuring of the way we think, we act, we work. It starts, or very often, it starts with working with the trees.
Mm-hmm.
and but connecting to the womb. And for women, it often starts with healing from sexual abuse and sexual trauma, because that's the first kind of the first gateway that blocks those gates of abundance, right? It's like I cannot allow anything to enter my womb that would make it blossom. So there is a like a lock or a veil that holds this abundance flow. I
Mm-hmm.
hope I'm making sense.
Oh, yeah, yeah, very, very much. It's some different perspectives than what I've thought of things are, like in my own healing with the sexual
Mm.
trauma. And it involved money too. I was given a coin, and told to go buy candy afterwards. And
Oh, mhm.
and so I had looked at it from that aspect of actual physical money, but I hadn't looked at it from the womb perspective of money, I guess. And so opened some ideas for me for meditation to see if more healing occurs in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, these are all different layers. Like sometimes, and sometimes what we need is to work from a more linear psychological perspective, as I said, or like, sometimes a person really needs to tie the A and B together, that this happened and after this, that happened. But I think when we begin working with the quantum realms and this term, the famous words quantum and alchemy, right? We can
Right.
use them. We can use them a lot, and nobody really knows what they mean. Well, to me, the womb realm is actually, it's like the embodiment of quantum and and alchemy,
Yeah.
because it is this process where somehow money and womb and sex and power are all connected, right? And we can go through the mind, and sometimes we need to process through the mind, but then those quantum realizations, they happen very quickly, and we like timeline jump, right? It's like a quantum leap. Suddenly, I just know it. And it may take me 10 years to unpack what I actually know and what do I mean by I know it. But something landed in me and the reality changed. And that's where it gets interesting, like working with quantum realms. Like, because for example, like I had a client, we also worked with some of the womb energy with her, and then she said, I started a new line of work completely, where I work like with environmental protection, and I didn't even know that I had it in me, like the words that I used, the um, words that I used to address the stakeholders who even changed their position. I didn't know I had it in me. It's amazing. Like after the session, everything just changed. I'm using different words, but it's not a coaching, right? Like I didn't coach her to use different words. So it's the process where the shift happens at the quantum level, and it lands the way it wants to,
Supposed to.
the way it's supposed to. Yeah, yeah. I can't control it, but that's when it gets interesting for me. Yes, that's the.
Very cool. Very cool. Huh. And this kind of goes along with, I found this interesting on your site when I looked, and it kind of goes along with the womb healing. I can see your belly dancing. You took belly dancing at some
Yes,
point,
yes. I've
and
been
how that,
teaching belly
yeah,
dancing.
and how that, I mean, that centers on the womb, right? Your
Hmm.
hips and everything. I think that's um, amazing. I had learned belly dancing, just not very good. I mean, I had learned it just briefly, a few lessons, right? Um, and I didn't know why I was pulled that way to learn belly dancing, but I really was. And So after several sessions, it was like this aha. It was like, in belly dancing, you can start from the head and shoulders and chest and hips and waist, move your way down to your feet, or you can start at the feet and shift the flow up. It was for energy clearing. That's how I use
Mm.
belly dancing is for energy clearing.
Again, the body, yes. Yes, for me, and again, after I moved here to Gozo, I shifted from the more performative belly dancing to a more embodied way. Like it became less interesting for me to teach. Oh, now you're going to perform,
Mhm.
uh, which is fine, but it wasn't as interesting anymore, as opposed to really tuning in and, for example, doing a circle with the hips and a circle with the chest into opposing directions. So the chest goes this
Mhm.
way and the hips go that way, or however it is, however it is, and what it does to the body, right? How it transmutes the brain waves, how it helps us get out of the head and into the physicality. It is a
It's
dance
kind of like
honoring the
crossing
feminine.
midpoint, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, originally it came from fertility dances, which were much, much older. The way we know it now, it's very heavily influenced by, including Russian ballet, but by more performative forms of dance. So we
Sure.
kind of, but it's amazing because it is exactly as you say. It's a womb dance. It centers on the womb and it honors the woman's body. I first started belly dance in 2003. I was in Norway, and after the first session I said, oh, finally I found you, what I was looking for all my life. And finally a dance that makes me look good. So that was and I've been teaching it exactly as that, as a way of womb healing and healing the mother wound and many other things along
Ye
the same line. Yeah.
And that makes so much sense to me because when I was pulled to it, I didn't wanna perform in any way, right? I didn't even wanna go to watch it performed. I j there was just something inner that was really
Yes.
pulling me, yeah, for the
Yeah.
healing.
Yes. 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 I found it very healing. Yeah, that's the most the magical part, and it makes women's bodies look good. The magic of belly dances. I've had many students, like in all shapes and forms and ages, and there is no right way. Well, there are rules, of course, and there is a wrong way to, that you don't want to injure yourself, but it looks different with every woman's body, because some have more flexibility in the hips, some have wider range of motion, and it looks, actually, the more voluptuous you are, the better it looks, which is very contrary to Western culture, where you have to be thin and slim. Well, belly dance actually doesn't look very good on very thin women.
Mm.
Okay, all right, I've seen that. Next, um, and the best, I remember when I was studying in Norway, I was. Next to me was a, a lady who was very voluptuous. And I said, my gosh, she dances better than anyone I've seen. Gosh.
Hmm, very cool.
Yeah.
In our remaining time, I have one more different it's a little shift here. Um, there was a reference on your website to um, when you do the ancestral work, you have ancestral analysis and numerology is involved.
Mhm.
So could you talk more about that?
Yeah, that's is not an official offering yet. Good on you for picking it up. It's coming up. Yes, so that was a method I was taught actually by well, she's a Russian researcher, but she studied with, I think, Peruvian ancestral healer. So there's a long story. But one of the methods that is used like before the session itself is a numerological analysis using Pythagorean tables, like those squares, like 3 by 3 square with
Okay.
dates of birth, and then also adding up the parents' dates of birth and just seeing the patterns there. So it's a very extensive numerological analysis, which, for example, points out the patterns, what you've come to heal in your family line. Like, is there an unexpressed mission that may be seen as things going wrong or kind of problems, where in reality it's just an unexpressed or maybe unmaterialized desire of your ancestors that you do something, right? It's like your whole
Mhm.
family tree wants you to do or to act or to express a particular energy, and you don't know what it is, and it may result in self-destructive processes, right? Because the system kind of tries to wake you up. So there are I still try to, with my background in Akashic record readings, I still try to look for big patterns, like
Mhm.
where are there any life purpose related issues that can come in through the ancestral channel, but also how much energy is available, children and health and family, and what to look out for, and kind of how the ancestral energy wants to land in you and in your life, and what is important. Let's say how much energy you have from the ancestral channel. Are you strongly connected or not at all? Are
Mhm.
or have you inherited a very damaged ancestral channel, quote unquote damaged or heavy, right, or
Mhm.
difficult, where more work needs to be done, right? Because for some there is more heaviness than for others.
Right.
So that's the numerological analysis, and the healing session would be a combination of the energy healing modalities that I already use, and a little more in constellations based therapy, just gently with this let's say having a dialogue with parts of a system that includes
Mm.
yourself and the ancestors
Interesting.
as a process of resolution. Yeah.
Oh, very
So
interesting. Yeah.
that's the newest
I
offering.
like
I'm
it. Yeah.
actually ah
It's kind
good.
of like a physical, or not necessarily physical, but mm, yeah, it's a totally different approach. I mean, I always use the energetic approach,
Yeah.
or the emotional, or just the patterns that you carry, things like that. Or the ancestors come. Sometimes they tell us things, right? But
Yes.
but I had never thought of it through an analysis. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah. I I think I liked it because it's more. Sometimes it depends on the person, right? There are some people um, who want something more tangible, like how do you know it?
Uh-huh.
Or where does it
Right.
come from?
Hmm.
And actually basing it in without going into too much details, but it grounds some perspectives. It never contradicted my own intuition or messages from ancestors, but it gives a form and a structure where it's like, okay, this is what your chart says, that these energies are present, and now we can begin to work with them more fully, because maybe maybe this is what the chart says, but you're not particularly connected to this particular area of your life at the moment, so
Mhm,
we see
mhm.
where you choose to go. But I like the numerological part here, because it, for many people, it grounds it into something tangible, or like,
Mhm.
okay, now I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's a interesting perspective. So, I was wondering could you tell people before we close, tell people again your website and anything about your offerings, your sessions or whatever you want to, and how they can get hold of you and things like that?
Yes, of course. So my website is healing-radiance.com, and you can find uh, most of what I do there. So I do Akashic Record readings, which is still the way most people find me and kind of start working with me. And as I said, I intend to complement it with like a separate ancestral reading, right, which
Mhm.
is like more numerology based, but that's working on ancestral patterns. And I offer those quantum healing sessions or energy healing sessions, where we work especially with guided journeys and energy work combined. So it's both the subconscious and the energy body that are involved. So very often it works much faster, and I do combine it with the Akashic work, with the Akashic field work, with kind of that information field around you. But I've come to find it's not separate from us, so it is present in every session that I do. And I also do teach. Currently, we just finished one Akashic Records course, but I do intend to start again in May. So I do teach how to work with the Akashic field. It's a bit of a different approach that I use, again, more grounded and more quantum, more quantum. But I like it to be experiential. So we do a lot of journeys into the Akashic realm and learn to transmute things for ourselves, rather than just quote unquote read, right? Like
Mhm. Mhm.
we're very, so we like to work with it for own personal transformation. So that's
Mhm.
a ten lesson course. And yes, so feel free to have a look at my website, energy healing and soul level healing and ancestral um, part. That part is available. Feel free to contact me, Inga at healing-radiance.com, if you have any questions. And I'm just very thrilled to have been able to share what I know and what I feel. Thank you for having me, Carla.
Oh, you're awesome. Yes, awesome. I'm glad you were here. It was a great conversation. I appreciate it a lot. So if you hang on just a little bit and we'll tell everybody else goodbye. And thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And please contact Inga if you have questions on her work or mine. You can contact me for that too. So we'll give you bye and we'll catch you next week.